Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am going to try to go live remote. And for all those people that know that I'm not all that technical. But I was out on a morning walk here at Carlsbad State Beach. I love Carlsbad. I am born and raised in Southern California. This is my home market. I worked in this market for over 20 years. I love coming back to the market, seeing friends, seeing work colleagues. Whenever I come into town in Southern California, I load up my days, 3, 4, 5 appointments a day, just reconnecting with folks. I'm at California State or Carlsbad State Beach, and you may not know this because you don't live here, but this is the sixth most popular park in the United States. So it's where I'm at. It's a camping ground. It's right on the ocean. You see the ocean behind me. Matter of fact, you should be able to see there's about 50 surfers in the water right now. But it's this little camp is on a thin string along the bluff where there's campsites right on the bluff and then campsites about 50 feet across or 40 feet across the street on the same bluff. And it's really nice because I think it's only like $60 to rent a campsite here. Maybe half that price on the other side. They have community bathrooms. They have a camp store. I think there's roughly 200 sites at this camp and you have to get a reservation like 2 years in advance. And for 4th of July this week, it's going to be packed. I like walking it, tip to tip. It's about 4 miles. I'll walk it a couple times usually. I love doing walk and talks here. I've been on a ton of walk and talks here, but I thought it'd be a good place to bring my Facebook Live today. Now, I got to warn everybody because I'm back on coffee. Now you go, what does that mean, back on coffee? Well, I cycle on, cycle off of coffee. I go 90 days on caffeine, 90 days off caffeine. And I don't know why I did it. I've done that since I worked at Starbucks just to kind of cleanse my system. And I didn't quite make it 90 days off this time. I only went about 65 days, but days like today, 3 or 4. And so I got my mighty, venti, bold Starbucks, which by the way, I went to a new concept Starbucks and they make the drip coffee now to order on like an espresso machine. I mean, they no longer brew it in batches. You just stick it in there and your cup underneath there and they brew you a cup. Really interesting, which is neither here nor there. I want to talk today. My topic is about the good news on presidential elections. And I'm not political in this commentary ever. I'm not going to talk politics. I don't imagine. But I had posted an article last week on LinkedIn, and the article was home sales tend to rise after an election. And the article, it was an Inman article, and it had 3 really, really powerful charts. I mentioned it in my news and notes wrap up last Saturday, but I didn't really touch on it. So I'm going to touch on the presidential election. I'm going to try to do all positive news this week. Not that I don't, sorry, I'm putting my coffee down. Not that I don't normally do positive news. But so I'll talk about the presidential election. And let's start with, gosh, we've been getting really inflation-friendly news the last few days, but the bond market's been, taken on the chin. Why? Right? And I know Barry covers this extensively. I'm not trying to be Barry. But I read a good article this morning in Inman News. The article was mortgage rates surge as Trump's odds improved after debate, right? And you're like, gosh, why are bonds going up? Because, Trump, I don't know, Trump did well or Biden did less well. But the fear is in the market that Trump's policies of higher tariffs, tighter restrictions on immigration, and extending the 2017 tax cuts are going to be highly inflationary. So the big investment houses like Barclays, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley sent communications out to their top clients yesterday or the last couple of days that they need to pivot into the inflation hedge products. And that's kind of startled the market, and so that's really been the big market mover. Japan, of course, had a little bit of influence yesterday as they have to start to sell U.S. treasuries in order to stabilize their currency. But it's really the market wondering, oh my gosh, Trump really could win. What does that mean for the market? And so it's causing a little disruption in the bond market. So that made me think, we're approaching a holiday. What's the good news? I shared this article last week. It was from another Inman, home sales tend to rise after big elections. It had 3 great data charts that I want to share. I'm going to share the results of it. But as with every chart, when you look at the chart, sometimes the news isn't the news. But the first chart, and I apologize, I'm looking down. I made a spreadsheet of the charts because that's what I do. But So the first one is home sales went up after 9 of the last presidential elections, and that is by units. So for example, in 1980, the year of the election, they had 2,973,000 sales. The year after the election, they had 2,419,000 sales, an increase of a 500,000 units from the presidential election year to the following year. It was up 18%. So that's kind of how it works. So in the last 11 election cycles, there's the volume of units has gone up 9 of the 11 times. So 9 times after a presidential election, we see more sales. And on average, there's just about 4.5% more sales the following year to a presidential election. There's only been 2 years where there was less sales, and those were 2 tumultuous years, and there's big geopolitical things going on. But so look for if history repeats itself. Now, I'm telling you, we're living in a historic time where we're going to make new history, and so really, who knows? And the article does a really good job. The author goes, look, first they quote a Mark Twain quote, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it certainly can rhyme. I like that, and that's a paraphrase as I'm not looking at it. And then it says, look, all we can do is arm ourselves with the best information, education, and data possible, and then share that with our clients as a point of view for our advice. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be true or not true. We don't know if there'll be more home sales after this presidential election, but history shows there has, and so we can weave that into our conversation. As when our clients ask us, "Gosh, what do you think? How's the presidential election going to affect real estate? Should I wait or should I buy?" And the first thing you say, well, history shows 9 out of the last 11 presidential elections, sales have increased. And so you can have a point of view and you sound educated, and it may or may not come to fruition, but at least you base it on some sort of fact. So that's the first thing. Home sales increase on average 4.5%. Second thing, home prices went up after a presidential election. And what they used in their article was the price of new homes, because that takes out a lot of noise and it's easy to do apples to apples comparison. So the price of new homes went up 10 out of the last 11 year presidential elections. So 10 years, the following year after presidential election, the prices of home sales went up. Now, this is really interesting. The first thing, by the way, and this goes back to 1980, the average price of a new house in 1980 was $64,000. Schmo, let's go back to that. $64,000, right? But the average price change in the cost of a new home following up from the election year to the following year, the average is the cost of a new home goes up 5.4%. So, and 10 out of 11 years went up. The highest it went up was 17.9%. By the way, that was after the last election during the pandemic. It only went down 1 year. That was in the crash year of 2008, where it went down 6.6%. But on average, prices go up for new homes about 5.4%. And that easily translates into resale. So once again, where do we think prices are going after the presidential election? Well, history shows 10 out of the last 11 election cycles, prices went up on average 5.4%. Another way to get people off the fence, another way to get them not worried about, I want to wait and talk to the election and see what happens. But here's what's interesting. This is where the data inside the data. When I was looking at this, what the average 4-year rate of appreciation, because they listed it presidential year, following year, and so they have the data every 4 years. On average, homes in the United States appreciated 18.5% every 4 years. So every 4 years, 18.5%, right? Just another argument why now is the time to buy. You got to get in there and get that compounding working for you. Really interesting. Okay, so let's go to the third chart, and then I'm going to talk about walk and talks. So third chart is, what did mortgage rates do the year following an election? And so 8 out of the last 11 election cycles, presidential election cycles, the following year, interest rates improved. So they decreased. So 8 of 11 times they decreased. The only exceptions were 1980, which of course was massive inflation they were trying to curb, and 1992, which we had the dot-com little wobble, and it barely increased, 0.1%, and then 2016. So those are the only 3 election cycles where rates went up. The other 8 out of 11, rates went down. And on average, rates improved by a quarter point, actually 0.26%, following an election year. So here's what presidential elections mean. They mean that volume usually goes up, Prices go up, volume goes up about 5%. Prices go up about 5%. Interest rates come down about a quarter percent. Now, will this be true this time? Maybe, maybe not. But at least I have an educated point of view when I'm advising my clients, and I can put a caveat to it. Hey, history shows, but this history may not repeat itself this time. It might not even rhyme like Mark Twain says. If you want to catch this article, I posted it on LinkedIn last week. You can find it. It's Inman, however you get to it. But incorporate that into your advice. I think, and it's happy advice, so let's incorporate it. Now, to wrap up my Facebook Live, I've talked about quite a bit Walk and Talks. I think I've done a podcast on Walk and Talks. I know I might have even been on Dave Savage podcast talking about Walk and Talks. We definitely did a live session on it because him and I do them quite a bit of times. I love Walk and Talks. I'm not going to talk about Walk and Talks here. I'm talking about a different part of Walk and Talks. And I'm really going to talk about a different part of professional relationships because I'm doing a walk and talk with one of my favorite people here in a couple hours. After I get done with this walk, I'm going to go do a walk and talk with Jeremy Patterson. And Jeremy lives in San Diego. He's a great loan officer. Historically, he's a good producer. Not that it matters, but he's like 50, 60, 70. I think he maybe done $70 million last year. He hits $100 million. Really good dude, independent guy. Really like Jeremy. I started working with Jeremy back in the early 2000s. And Jeremy has worked for me, has reported to me. I've had the pleasure to try to help coach and mentor him. And now our relationship has evolved where, not only are we close friends, but we talk shop, we bounce ideas off of each other. The part I want to share is, Jeremy and I have met every month for 20 years. As a matter of fact, we're meeting today. And it didn't matter whether Jeremy worked for me. It didn't matter whether we worked at the same company. It didn't matter if we lived in the same city. As a matter of fact, I try to make it back here to Southern California once a month to make my walk and talks with Jeremy, which is the first Saturday of every month. And when I can't make it here, he'll come out and visit me wherever I'm at, right? And I remember when Jeremy first left, my brother and I had a brokerage, and I know we were working at a mortgage bank, and Jeremy went to a competitor, and Jeremy at that time, Jeremy and I were meeting weekly, and so we kept meeting weekly, even though we didn't work for the same company, even though he didn't report to me, because when you're committed to a relationship or you're committed to somebody professionally or not, it doesn't matter whether you benefit from them or make money from them. It's the commitment. That's what I always tell people. When I've moved from companies before, I've always said this doesn't end our relationship. My passion to pour into you, my passion to help you, my passion to walk your path with you wasn't predicated on us wearing the same jersey. And so I always remember that when I come back and I meet with Jeremy every month, and there's so many people here in Southern California whom I have a similar relationship, but not 20 years every month, no matter what, but that are really, really similar. And I just think that's such a great way to approach, working with people, and so I'm looking forward to seeing Jeremy. I just thought I'd share that. I'm looking forward. This is one of my favorite spots for walk and talk. Jeremy aren't meeting here. We typically meet down in San Diego Harbor, which is a totally beautiful place. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you get some good news from the presidential election. As I say, we don't know what the heck's going to happen. Anything can happen. I think this election won't necessarily, history is not going to repeat itself. I think we're going to make new history. But approaching that, at least we have some statistics, we have some data. We can use that data. It makes it sound, like we know what we're doing, which is always good. I hope you make this a great day. I hope you're having a good week. I look forward to coming back tomorrow. Probably be from another on the spot. If this worked and if we have sound and everything, I'll probably try this again tomorrow. I appreciate everybody. Keep giving me the encouragement. Keep giving me pointers. Tell me, like yesterday, my mic was nowhere near me apparently, and so you can barely hear me. I appreciate all the feedback I got about that. When I do bonehead stuff, let me know if the camera's upside down, if the mic's off, if my hair's blowing in the wind or whatever. With that, have a great day. I'll see you about the same time tomorrow. Thanks.